Hiya, welcome to Pickler the Podcast. We are your co-hosts, Stacie Townsend and John, the People's Champ, Davison. John, we are coming off a wild weekend of pickleball, including Major League Pickleball, their second event in Newport. I know you were there. Any first takes?
I mean, it was another fun event by MLP. I think that atmosphere is just better. It's just different than every other tournament that there is on the schedule. And I honestly enjoy going to them, even though I'm not playing. It's fun, the team atmosphere, just all that going on. It's a good time. Unfortunately, my girl, Olivia and the Lions didn't make it out of the pool play, but it happens.
So who were you rooting for coming out of pool play?
Coming out of pool play. I just didn't want to see BLQK win again. So I was going for every other team.
Well, we just had James Ignatowicz on the podcast. Any chance you were rooting for James and the Ranchers? Because I think it would be a good call based on the results.
I will say in the final, kind of what I was rooting for a dream breaker. We wanted the dream breaker. There was like me and Kyle Yates and Joey and Michelle and Corinne and Adam all in the stands. And we just wanted the dream breaker so bad. But I think if they went to the dream breaker, I think the Ranchers would have won anyways. So
I think so too. And I'm going to stop us right there because I'm very excited about our guests. And before I introduce them, I feel like I should get into character. Speaking of the Ranchers. So tonight we have a former banker. I don't know if it's going to quite fit on my headphones here, but former banker, former tennis player turned pickleball developer, and also owner of the Ranchers, the winner of Major League Pickleball, Tim Klitch. Welcome, Tim. I guess I should say howdy. Should I say howdy? Howdy, partner?
Howdy or welcome y'all. Anything like that works.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight. What's your reaction after a fun weekend?
I'm trying to decide if I just need to stay away from my team more often because the first two times I was sitting at courtside cheering them on and we never made it out of pool play. And this time I had a conflict with a previously scheduled trip to sail Lake Huron that I couldn't change, and I was holding my phone on the back of a boat out in the middle of Lake Erie screaming, or Lake Huron screaming, and I think some people wondered what was wrong with me.
That's too funny. So you had good reception out there, is what
I actually could stream some of it, although the finals was kind of funny. I couldn't get CBS Sports Network in Canada. So I called my wife. I was in a bar in Little Current on Manitoulin Island, and we did a FaceTime call, and she put her phone in front of the TV. And so I did an hour and a half FaceTime call to watch the finals on my iPhone.
That's too funny. At least they made it quick, I guess. The Ranchers, for those of you that may not know, they won the first 3 games. So John's dream breaker dream was crushed. But so they made it quick for you, Tim.
And I was happy for that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a lot less stressful for you. But it sounds like you're the bad luck charm, Tim.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so we were broken last time, and that's why we tried to fix it, and it worked. And so maybe I just need to be superstitious. And I may go to Columbus, since that's where I grew up, and watch from very far away so they can't see me.
Oh, okay. Smart idea.
Or maybe I need to find a boat and go sit on the Scioto River and watch it on my iPhone from 5 miles away from the venue.
Yeah, you can do that too. If only we had some courts with boat access, like the F1 race in Monaco, people watching from the yacht.
That's it.
It sounds like that's is what you need to do.
I think you're right.
Or maybe for those Giants fans, you could sit in the kayaks outside AT&T Park, I think, and just listen to the sounds of the crowd.
Yep.
So Tim, I think we all want to get into what your thought process was leading up to this tournament, because your team was changed and you went from 11th place at the last Major League Pickleball to first. So 11 out of 12 to first, which is pretty incredible. But first I want to learn more about you, learn your story, and how'd you get into pickleball, and what's your journey, and what's your role in the sport now?
Sure. My sister and I were both tennis players growing up. Our dad was a tennis pro in Columbus, Ohio. So I played D1 and briefly pro tennis. My sister made it to the top 100 in tennis. So we've been playing tennis all the years. I got a silver ball last year at the grass courts in the men's 60, so still playing a lot of tennis. But in 2019, I had some property under contract, and I was debating whether to put a tennis facility up on it. And I happened to meet Steve Kuhn at a Wimbledon watch party. And he said, "Have you ever played pickleball?" And I'm like, "Nope." And he goes, "Well, come over to my house tonight." So I went over to his house, and after the first hour, I think I hit about 40 or 50 second balls out of the air to lose points because I kept wanting to go to the net after I served. And once I got that part down, I figured out, sport's actually kind of fun. And so he turned me on to it. And little did I know, the next month I was going to wreck a dirt bike in Telluride, Colorado, and fracture my collarbone and break a bunch of ribs and mess myself up. So I had to have two surgeries, and so I spent 6 months with my left arm in a sling. And needless to say, I wasn't playing any tennis, but I could play pickleball with my arm in a sling, and it really brought home to me how accessible the sport is for people with injuries. Because I had to be really careful because you're a little off balance with one arm. And I realized that this is a really good sport for people that can't do other sports to play. So that was really what turned me on to it, was recovering from that injury.
So if you didn't go to that Wimbledon watch party, you'd have extra tennis courts in Austin?
I would probably have tennis courts that had pickleball lines on them, but not pickleball courts.
Well, the word on the street is you also have a pickleball court in your backyard.
I do. We put in a sport court about 28 years ago, and then about 2020 we peeled the tiles off, redid it, and converted it full time to a pickleball court. And I gotta say, for a private court, I think it gets the most usage of any court in this part of the country. And I get spoiled because I get to watch a lot of really good pickleball out there. And I play in some bad pickleball.
Yeah. Well, it seems like every pro's out there, from Ben to Colin to just about everybody else.
So. Yeah, it's so well located. I'm only 3 miles from downtown, so all the folks that live in Central Austin, they know I've got a court they can count on using.
Nice. I'm sure you learn a lot from sitting in the lawn chair with maybe a drink in your hand and watching some high level stuff.
Well, and I've been taking some privates from Colin, and I gotta admit, that guy is a technician of the highest degree. My volleys used to look like tennis cut volleys, and now they're roller volleys after him working with me. So I highly recommend anybody who wants to improve, take lessons. It's worth it.
Oh, 100%. I've done them. I've spent 5 figures on lessons probably over the years.
I think I get the friends and family discount from Colin.
Well, there you go.
It's kind of nice having him in my backyard.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So building your own courts, Tim, with the Austin Pickle Ranch, soon to be, you had one in your own backyard, owner, you invested in Major League Pickleball from the very get-go. What made you to take that leap?
Well, I think after Steve exposed me to the sport back in 19, I started doing a lot of research and looking around. And, being a banker mentality guy, I say I like pickleball a lot, but I didn't. I think I'm like a reformed drug addict. I've hit so many tennis balls over my life. I don't get the same rush out of hitting pickleballs that most people do. And so, but I just started observing, and as I would bring people out and hit with them, I'm like, holy cow, these people love this sport. Like tennis players like playing tennis, but it's work. People love playing pickleball. And so I've never seen a sport that just people, as they get exposed to it, they love doing it. So that was number one. And then, I bought some of the data from the Sports Fitness Industry Association, started doing all the research and the numbers. And then I had already done a survey of all the tennis courts in Austin. So I knew where every flat piece of concrete or asphalt was within the entire Central Texas area. And their full-time accessible pickleball courts, there were like 12 that you could play on. Well, we're in a city of 2 million people. And so I just started looking at the numbers going, as a person thinking about getting into the business, I like where supply is low and demand is high. And we're in such a fast growth area. I've never seen a real estate market like Austin. Just
Mm-hmm.
land is expensive, homes are expensive. It's really hard to develop here. And so I know there's a lot of barriers to entry for other people to come in. And so I happen to have this 13 acres, only 8 miles from downtown Austin, that were suitable for doing this, and it just seemed like a really good idea at the time. And I'd say it went from a good idea then to kind of a no brainer now, given what's happened with the sport.
For sure. So, what do you think about MLP? What's your mind frame now, looking back on your decision then?
I got to admit, I went in because I could tell Steve was passionate about it and he was going to make it work. So if it had been anybody else, I probably would not have made the investment in the team. But I've never met a guy who loves something like Steve does and believes in it, and so that's kind of infectious and makes you want to go along with what he's doing. Um, and then I viewed it as a great adjunct to the Pickle Ranch and a great marketing tool. So
Mm-hmm.
really, I didn't do it as a financial investment. I didn't do it to make money. I did it as a way to support the ecosystem for the pros and to do something kind of fun. And then when we did the first season, I drafted a bunch of doubles players, and we did okay, but we didn't do that well in the Dream Breakers. And
Mm-hmm.
then this year, I kind of did a little bit of the same thing, although with the change in the personnel for this season versus last season, I got to admit, I really didn't know um, the players all that well, especially at the bottom of the draft. I knew the top draft players pretty well, but in that second round, it was a little bit of a you pick them kind of situation. And so um, we weren't horrible. We lost two Dream Breakers. Now, I I don't think we had the best singles players, and I think we struggled in the Dream Breakers, and so I looked at it and go, well, when you're 11th place and you lost two close, I mean, the first two matches we lost were Dream Breakers that we could have won, and in both matches we were up 2-1 in the fourth match, and we had game points on our paddles and couldn't win them. And
Wow.
so we were close to being 2-0. Instead, we were 0-2. And so to me, that says to me that, okay, it's worth making some changes, but you don't need to panic. You don't need to, dump the whole team or do anything crazy. But if opportunities come up to improve, then you look at those.
Yeah.
I
Well,
know.
I think in the first round of this year in Austin, it was like 40-something% of matches ended up in a Dream Breaker.
Yeah, and it was
So
66% for us.
yeah. So I mean that's a lot of matches that end up in a singles shootout kind of format. So it's really important to have those singles players, especially if the other team can pair up if you set your lineup first, another team could put maybe their best person against your worst person, and then it's like, ooh, you might lose 8 points in that one matchup.
Right.
Yep. So everybody now, I'm sure that's not a big singles player, is now practicing a lot of singles.
I think you're right. And,
Yeah.
and then when we had the opportunity to make the Maggie Brasha for Jackie Kawamoto trade, um, uh, Maggie was a fine player. She did a great job for us. I didn't have any issues with it. But when you're 11th place and you find an opportunity to make a trade and you objectively say, hey, I can't remember exactly, but let's just say I think I picked Maggie with the 20th pick because I
Mm-hmm.
had Anna as the fifth pick. So I think it's 24 plus one is your sum of your picks always add up to. So Maggie was my 20th pick and Jackie was the 10th pick. So I looked at that and said, well, with that trade being able to be made straight up, and it was a good trade for the other team because it let them put the Brasha sisters together, and it got me Jackie. I was like, yeah, that's kind of a very easy trade to say yes to. And then um, I made the decision that that as much as I liked Austin Gridley, I think he's a really nice guy. Got, his family stayed with me during the June event, so I got to know the family really well, which didn't make it any easier to cut him from my team. But when I looked at some of the players that were in the pool, I was really intrigued with James. And if I call him the wrong name, it's because I have a fake name for him called Ignatowski. So I jokingly refer to him as Ignatowski, even though I know his name's Ignatowicz. So if I mess that up, it's kind of almost on purpose. But I met him. He was down for MLP, even though he didn't play. And I watched his results in some of the singles, and I thought, this guy, he's long, he's quick. And I have a perception that when tennis players migrate over to pickleball, that they're really good in singles right away. Like you can be good in singles within a week. Um, but I think the doubles game takes 1 to 2 years to get at the
Yeah.
same level as your singles game will do it. And so I viewed James as a little bit of a project and a little bit of a flyer, but I like the raw. I mean, I've never seen a guy as big as he is have as quick a hands as he does. I mean, it looks
Hmm.
like he's kind of standing there not paying attention. All of a sudden, boom, he just flicks that thing. And it's like a what's that? A cobra, a snake
Yeah.
striking. He's so quick. So I liked him. And then I think the thing that can't be um, understated or can't be overstated here is the chemistry of your players, because this is not like a football team with a 50, I forget, 55-man roster, 45. I don't watch football that much. Um, but they got a lot of dudes on the team. This is 4 people, and
Mhm.
you really got to think about the pairings and the matchups and the chemistry, and I don't think we had good chemistry last time, so that made it easy just to try and shake up around what I consider to be my 2 core first round pillar draft picks, and take a chance on changing out the parts. And as it turned out, I changed the right parts in.
But
Yeah.
before we talk about how awesome your 4-person squad did, were you the one making these decisions, Tim?
Yeah.
How were you? Were you getting any input from anybody?
Yeah. Well, during the draft process, to me, this is not like the NBA with a big roster where you got to let your star tell you who to get on their team. But if I'm going to ask a really good pickleball player to play with somebody, I want their input on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I talked with my players during the drafting process and during the trade process and got their input on it. And I didn't always listen to it. And I should say I listened to it. I didn't always act exactly how maybe they wanted me to act, but
Mm-hmm.
I took their input as, one of multiple sources. But you got to be careful. You don't want to just blow it off and then cram down a partner on somebody
Yeah.
who doesn't want that partner, because then you're not going to win. And
Hmm.
and then we got together the week before MLP. Most of the team was here in Austin practicing together, and really got like some good time hanging out together, and getting to know each other. And I think they were nervous that first match, and then after that, I think they were just loose and smooth. And I was really happy to see the guys come together, because they lost their first 3 matches in pool play.
Hmm.
Um, but I told myself that this would be an interesting experiment, because going in, if you added the dupers together of my 2 women, we had the highest woman duper rating of anybody. And you got, now that there's numbers, you got to at least look at those numbers, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily want to be just blindly looking at numbers. But that was something I took into account, and I thought, okay, so let's see how this goes. Well, it's awfully nice being up 1-0 in every match, and that
Hmm.
just, being up 1-0 is way better than being down 1-0 in every match. And so I like that. And Anna and Jackie just, I mean, that semifinal match. Now, keep in mind, I'm watching these on my phone with blurry images on boats, and I got 1 bar of connection on a 3G network, so I'm barely able to see. But when they played Susanna Barr and Georgia Johnson, I think in the semis on Sunday morning, um, that was I think the single biggest can of whoop ass I've ever seen in MLP on two good players against two good players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they won 21-5, and
Yeah, that's right.
I believe that may be the largest margin of victory in any individual matchup in MLP in the three events that they've had. And maybe there's one close to it. And those are really good players. And just the like by Sunday, that team gelled into something really special.
Tim, you sound like a proud dad.
I'm the happiest thing about it is seeing those guys make 25 grand each, because it is really meaningful to people who are busting their butts year round to try and do something, and it's marginally financially rewarding. And to me, that probably is a year maker for all these players. It just if they're break evenish or making a little bit of money, I mean, if you look at what their net income is after expenses for traveling and doing all this stuff, that is a huge amount of money. And I'm just happy to see my guys get it, because DJ and James, and they all said they were going to win it going in. And but they said that in June too. So I had to, take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, but they believed, and it worked out.
Yeah, well, to put some numbers behind it, Jackie, who you traded for, was the number one. And I guess I should say MLP did both a player and a team ranking in connection with this event, got some more stats. Jackie, who you traded for, was the number one player, both male or female. Anna Bright, number two. They were your co-MVPs of the entire event. And then your guys, James, who he calls the nerds over at NML Pickleball, gave a D- for your decision there, but he really stepped it up, was number 9, and DJ, number 10. So you had 4 of the top 10 players based on that event, which is pretty incredible.
And that was with the guys losing their first 3 matches. So, but they turned it on when we needed it, and that was really big. But yeah, I saw that NML article, and I was laughing when I was listening to James's podcast with y'all. And and after they did it, I got in the comments and wrote a few things going, hey, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Let's wait and see how this turns out. I'm owning it. I made the call, because they were inferring in there that like Anna Bright was making the calls on me drafting her boyfriend and all that stuff. And I was like, hey, I want to win. This is what this is about. I owe it to these players to do everything in my power to put the best team together for them to have a chance to win that $25,000. And I that I had one job, and this time I maybe got lucky and did it better.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing you touched on was team chemistry. I think that is the one of the main factors in how these teams are successful or they're not, because you see some teams that are studs, all 4 players, just great players, and they don't get a win, and I think on your team, I watched the first match, and I don't think that chemistry was really there yet.
Yep.
And they got by, right? I think it was the bus maybe when they played it first.
Yep.
They got by in singles, but you could tell how they were like much more cohesive later in the tournament versus the first match.
Yeah. And I haven't been able to, I just got the raw feed because the live feed was messed up on the grandstand court during that match. So I wasn't able to watch that one. And I just got the raw video this afternoon. I haven't watched that to see, but apparently I forget what the score was in this Dream Breaker. I want to say it was 21-12 or 10 or 14. It's a pretty wide margin, which, without having watched it yet, led me to believe that we upgraded our singles skill, and that paid off, because I just assumed we'd go 2-2 and we need to win 5 Dream Breakers to win this, and that was kind of how I built the team.
Yeah, if you can push it to singles every time, and you got a couple of the best singles players out there, that surely helps.
And John, you mentioned this team chemistry. Tim, what I think you said is you brought the team to your place in Austin before the event to try and grab some extra team chemistry or get a leg up there. I wonder if any other team did that, and if that really affected the outcome in Newport.
I know I forget what team Andrea Coop is
The
on.
Chimeras.
Yeah, so she came to Austin and stayed at she and her husband stayed at our house for a couple of days while they were practicing. So, and they were practicing on our court a bunch. So, yeah, I know some others did it too, but I think it helps that James and Anna practice a lot together. Although they didn't ever play
Right.
together, uh, we thought our mixed teams were best with DJ and Anna and Jackie and James. And I got to say, I agree, given the outcomes.
Yeah, I got to give credit to James too, because I was watching that match. I think you'll see he was a little bit tight, I believe, in the doubles, and then you could see him when he was playing against Kyle and Millie. Millie was getting him a few times, and I think James was like, "Oh, I don't really play mixed a lot," And then but you could tell like his athleticism and his IQ was really high, that he figured it out very quickly. And by the second half of that game, the whole script flipped, and he was just eating them up. So I think he actually proved his worth in doubles, even though some of the results didn't show it. Yeah.
Right. Well, and keep in mind, what was it? 2 weeks before the draft, or right before the draft, DJ and somebody beat James and somebody else 1-0.
Mm-hmm.
Like bad. It was not a game. And so to me, I just look at James and go, that's a guy with a lot of upward potential.
Oh yeah.
And especially on the double side, I think he's probably only playing at about 40 or 50% of what his proficiency could be after he sticks with this.
Yeah, I think once his IQ gets a little better on the double side, I think you'll see him be a pretty big force.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
And he said,
but I was glad to see. But it's hard for a guy like him who's used to being, the guy on a singles court to then play right side and tell DJ, hey, take the middle, take charge. And I got to give credit to the two of them for working through that. It's almost like you could see that all of a sudden they figured it out midway through and just started working better together.
No, my perception of James after the podcast, he was super, super self-aware and worked really hard. He said he hit, 10,000 dinks from the right side heading into Newport. So he clearly has the right mindset to want to get better, like you said, to reach that potential. So kudos to him.
I think you're right. And he was pretty funny when he was thanking his fraternity brothers at Sigma Chi during his comments after the match. I was dying laughing watching that.
Yeah, he's got a personality, and I think pickleball needs more of that.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
So the Ranchers almost worst to first. Now you're first heading into the final event of 2022 for Major League Pickleball. Anything you are definitely going to do or not going to do, or heading into Columbus?
You know what? I just think that they finished so strong. We just gotta start strong. And not go back to the being unsure of ourselves or figuring, we're the champs. We want it. We know we can beat everybody. We just got to have that, the combination of self-confidence and hunger. And I'd love to see these guys win it again, especially going back to my hometown. I want to win in Columbus because I haven't been back for a while. My parents lived there until 2017, and my dad had a stroke, and then we moved my mom and dad down here to Austin with me, and so I think I went back with my mom maybe once or twice after then, and I've gone back a couple of times, but I'd really like to go back and kind of win one in Columbus for both my mom and dad have since passed, so it'd be kind of nice to go home and plant a rancher flag right in David Cass's backyard.
There you go. I love it.
And I say that one of our family's favorite pictures is when David Cass was about 3 years old. My dad gave him tennis lessons on their court in their backyard, and we had my dad showing David how to hold a tennis racket back then. And so we've been friends with the Cass family for 50 years, and they're really nice people. But I'd still like to welcome.
That makes me want to ask, how is the camaraderie amongst the owners? Do you guys banter quite a bit, or start to talk some smack like the players do, or?
I try to, but I gotta admit, it's mostly friendly and it's all very positive. I mean, I got 4 or 5 texts and emails from other owners congratulate me for our team's performance, and I gotta admit, like when BLQK won the first season, I was like, yeah, you had Ben John, so big accomplishment
Right.
there. You got the GOAT. But then when they won it this year with a new team, I made sure Richie and Justin knew that I was impressed that when you had to redraft and do it again and to win it back to back, that was a real accomplishment. And so they did a great job winning it this year. And so I think that there's a little bit of smack talk, but it's all in good fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think the BLQK comes back, their win this year comes back to the confidence that you were talking about. Pickleball's so mental, right? When you have a guy like Rafa Hewitt, who, has always been a good pro, but is not always finding the medal stand, right? And then he comes out, and I think he was the MVP of the whole tournament, and you could just sense the confidence just oozing from that whole team. And I think that's what pushed them over that, well, not over the hump, but like that's what pushed them to the victory, is that confidence that they had.
Yeah, because Zane didn't even have to play, and they won 3-0 and didn't have to play the last mixed match. So they won it without him. So that was strong.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure Travis talks a lot of smack amongst you guys.
He's different because he's actually a player. So none of us, hacks can talk any real smack with somebody who could take you out and school you on the court. So he's entitled to a certain level of cockiness that the rest of us can't afford to have.
Yeah, I know. He's quite the character himself, though. But it's been fun meeting a lot of the owners through this whole process, because it seems like pretty much everybody's a really good person and just out there having fun and creating a good atmosphere for everybody.
Well, I think everybody who went into this with Steve went into it for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. We're into grow the sport and have fun, and if you look at the amount of money that we're putting into the players' pockets for this, it's nice that if you go to any pro tournament and you come in last, you're out $1,500 bucks for traveling there, and you got no prize money, and at least everybody made a little bit of money for showing up for the weekend. And I just think the atmosphere is different at these than it is at the tournaments. It's a little less cutthroat, a little more fun, a little more smack talking among the players, and the different pairings. I mean, a lot of these teams are not teams that play together normally. I mean, James and DJ had never played together before this weekend. And so I think that's what makes MLP special. And I do think the Dream Breaker format is phenomenal. It's funny now. Everybody knows when you play Lee Whitwell in singles, you don't go to the net.
Yeah.
Because she's gonna smoke you. And so I love a sport where the men and women can all compete, and it's heads up, and everybody's wins is important as everybody else's wins. And I think I'd like to see the statistics on women versus men one-on-one points and Dream Breakers in the 3 events MLP has had. I bet you the women have won 40 to 45% of the points, and maybe it's closer to 50%. And I don't think that there's very many other sports where you could put professional male athletes and professional women athletes one-on-one and have that kind of a dramatic and fun outcome.
Oh, for sure. I think Vivian David got more on JW in the first go around. I think she got 5 out of 8 or something like. I could be making it up, but that was pretty.
I feel
cool
bad for these. It's bad. I feel bad for those male pros when they get smoked by the women, because when the ladies get hot and just start ripping those winners, there's nothing you can do about it. And it's just like, oh crap, I think I should win these points, but it's just not meant to be.
Yeah.
That's what, I don't know. That first one was so much fun watching Lee and everybody did so well. So I think this is just a special kind of format, and I think I don't think it's the way all pickleball should be played, but I think there's room for 3 or 4 events a year. This way, they're a different format, and I think it'll help the sport grow.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you had this format every single weekend, I don't know if that would lose its factor a little bit.
I think it will wear out and get a little tired. So I think it's a good mixer.
Yeah, for sure. What changes would you make for next year?
Well, the one change, and I will go on the record saying I brought this up in an owners meeting before last weekend, is I don't know that we've resolved the franchise continuity with the players. But when we had the turnover in the player pool between last year and this year, we drafted all new players and started from scratch. And I think that was the game plan for next year. But I'll say, as a franchise owner, I want to invest in my players to have them be ranchers, not maybe for life, but for more than just a season. And so I'm pushing the owners to try and let us maybe designate franchise players and keep some of the team together, because but we're going to expand probably again and add more teams, and so you can't hang on to all the talent. But I think there's enough new talent. I mean, look at James and Anna coming in over the, Anna a little bit sooner than James, but James kind of, popped on the scene. He wasn't even on the draft radar back in April when we did the cut for drafting the first for the first event. And so I think we're going to have a lot more new players coming over into the sport as the money keeps going up. And I'm glad to see there's going to be network coverage, I think, this coming Saturday on CBS of that Skechers event. And so I think all that's good for the sport. Get more people watching the pro game, and then we'll just keep plucking off some of the tennis players. But I don't want all the tennis players, because there's a lot of tennis players I don't want to play pickleball because I don't like them that much on the tennis court. And so they can just stay with their toxic, bad line calls and gamesmanship and all their head case crap. They can keep that crap over in tennis. I'd like pickleball to stay a different sport, and I think it really has a soul and has a different vibe to it. And yeah, when we're playing competitively, we want to win, but this is about a community. This is about a different thing than tennis, and I don't want it to become like tennis.
Yeah, I like your point about having a franchise player. I feel like that is needed, whether you have one or two, because they are talking about expanding, right? So whether you have one or two this year, I think that would be important, because then you can kind of mold a team around someone,
right?
Or two people, maybe a male and a female. My other suggestion, because if they are going to expand to more events, I think they should limit the trade window to only one time in the middle of the season, right? So let's just say they do 6 events, right? Or 8 events. At the 3 or 4 mark, maybe then you get the trade window opening, and then you're stuck with your team for the rest of the season.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point. I don't think that we currently have on our radar adding a lot of new events. I think 3 or 4 is probably, 1 a quarter is about right for this format and this thing, because it is kind of expensive to mobilize and set up and do all this and do it right. And we're learning a lot every time we do one. The internet just goes out sometimes at these places, and it's frustrating for the team to have everything set up right, and then the feed gets disrupted. And I think we're trying to all get better at all the execution, and I think the big thing is, I think you're right. I think 2 is probably the right number of franchise tags, one male, 1 female, and that way you can keep part of your team intact. And then maybe if you redraft, you might end up being able to redraft a player or 2 back that you had to put in the pool.
Right.
You never know. But we haven't. I don't think we've resolved that for next year. I do think they absolutely have to fix the sub rule, the substituting that was going on, which I had a hard time watching because I was watching my team's matches on my phone, so I was following it on some of the social feeds. But I think the spirit, let's talk about forget what the rule says. The spirit is, hey, if someone gets food poisoning, has to sit out a match because they're sick, great, let them sit. But this, you know, we're not trying to do like baseball substituting or basketball where you send in a defensive, offensive, you
Mm.
know, sub. And so I think we're gonna have to clarify that rule. And whether or not the letter of the rule said you could do one thing, I'm totally supportive of limiting substitutions to the bare minimum. So it's, we don't want any players getting hurt. And I think that should be the number one thing is don't let a player get hurt, and then make sure the competition can go on with a sub in for a potentially injured player. But beyond that, I don't think there should be any subbing,
Yeah,
especially within a match.
Yeah, that created quite the drama at the courts.
Yeah.
Rightfully so for both sides. The one side that did it first thought they were within the rules, and then nobody else liked it. So, it definitely.
And I don't
needs
blame them for trying to do it, but
Right.
it doesn't mean that that's the way it should be. So I think that'll get tightened up before the next event. I did like the fact that they capped the rally scoring at 18. So once you got to 18, you didn't get to come back, because that really blew us up in our matches earlier in the first event, where we were up in a couple matches and people came back. And I realized it made it more dramatic, but it also rewarded the weaker team that was behind and let them come back easier. And I don't like doing that. I think the stronger team should prevail. And so I think that happened more this time around with the modified rules. So
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it created a lot less huge comebacks,
exactly.
But it makes one of the points very important. If it's like 18-18, right? Or it's in that, or 19-18, then say team gets a 20 and 18. Now
Yeah.
that other team is just got
It's
screwed,
frozen.
Yeah. So that it
Well,
makes
and let's
that
talk
point.
let's talk about that last point of our women's match in the finals. So and keep in mind, I'm watching this on FaceTime, so I can't really see it that well. But it looked to me like our gals hit a ball that hit the top of the net and rolled about 6 or 8 inches, and then went right over the net. And I don't think Paris could reach it. And we got really lucky on a key point at 2019 to win the match. And that was when I knew this was our night.
Yeah, it was a fun match to watch. There was me and a few other pros. We all had a little bit of drinking games in the stands, which made it really fun to watch. Every time like Rafa Hewitt would give a woof woof or whatever, we would all drink.
Well, too bad we didn't have Althoff out there doing his pelvic thrusts.
We wouldn't have enough beers. We wouldn't have enough beers to get through that match.
That's true.
So do you think MLP will have 3 or 4 events that are each on their own like they're doing this year? Or do you think it will kind of accumulate over each event so you have one overall champion?
I don't know. I think since we only did one last year, we didn't have multiple, and so I don't know. I hope they don't average your results, because we'd still be in like 6th place with our bad finish and our good finish. So I don't know. I think that'll be a good thing for the ownership group and MLP staff to talk about at the end of the year. But whatever you guys think, let us know, because we want to
maybe
hear.
A weighted average, maybe.
Yeah.
But
or maybe you count your best 2 results and get to throw your worst one out.
Yeah, you can drop one out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd vote for that right now.
There's so many ways you could do it. You can make it like the Premier League, or some other leagues where you have like a regular season and then you get seeded into the final tournament. There's so many ways you could do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know which one's the best way for pickleball.
I don't either. And I just know I guess it's kind of like watching a Formula One race and knowing there's a point standing, and those last few races really matter. In golf with the FedEx Cup, I think there's something to doing that. And maybe if there's more than 3 events, it makes more sense to do that. But I think that's a good thing for MLP to talk about.
Yep. And then go ahead, Stace.
I was going to say, any other inside pickleball, inside baseball comments from the ownership group that you can share?
Uh, I think we're all just having fun. I mean, having Drew Brees come in was huge. I think he added a level of validation of the 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 MLP format and the product that this is ready for prime time. It was nice having Mark Lazary and Gary V and those guys, but Drew is a true pickleballer. I mean, that guy is, not too many Super Bowl champion quarterbacks out there playing pickleball, and he's from Austin, and I've been beat up by his dad a couple of times on the court, and so I was glad to see him, and I think we'll continue to see an influx of high profile people into it, because what better way to get involved than owning or being involved with a sports franchise and getting to hang out with the guys and play with them and root for them. And so I think we'll see more and more of that happen over the next few months.
Yeah, 100%. And how hard is it in other sports to own a sports team, right?
Yeah, it's just a pretty small check.
Right. Even the biggest celebrities right now can't afford a pro sports team at a couple $1 billion, so it gives them an opportunity like, wow, I own a sports team.
Yeah. What the Broncos go for, $4.5 billion. I think I saw the other day. Crazy.
So I think you'll see more of that, and I think it'll only be good for the sport.
I agree.
Well, any final questions you have for Tim, John? Any other burning questions?
Would you like to call out anybody before the next Columbus stop? Would you like to call out some owners or some teams?
Not really. When you've won, you want to keep your mouth shut and not put a bigger target on your back than there already is. And I've already opened my yap on David Cass, so I'm sure the bus will be coming after us. And I don't want to get run over by a bus. But no, I think the big thing. I know we talked a little bit about some of the good pickleball I get to watch in my backyard, and I want to make a point of what happens in my backyard stays in my backyard. And so I watch some really good stuff go on, and I don't talk about it outside of that. And I think that's why I get to watch so much good stuff. So I'd love to tell y'all, I may put a hidden webcam up there and not tell, Ben and Zane and some of the other guys that are out there that they're on a secret camera, and expose them someday. But man, it's so much fun watching those guys hit the ball hard. I think it'll be fun when we get open and those guys start to play at the Pickle Ranch. It's really going to be fun having them around practicing.
Oh, for sure. And when you watch that level, it's like, wow, I can do that. And then you step on the court and do it yourself, and it's underwhelming.
Well, and I don't think that when I see it in person. I think that when I watch it on TV, because it looks too easy on TV. And then when I'm in person, I go, holy cow, some of those shots, I can't even imagine those shots. I mean, Ben does things with his hands that I do have to say, I did play Ben Johns in singles the other day, and I almost took him. Now, it was tennis. But he broke me the first game and beat me 6-4 in the set we played. So I did almost take a set off of Ben in tennis. But Colin, on the other hand, he kicked my ass so bad. We played a few points, and I was like, yeah, we're not playing a set. This is not going to be well for me. So Ben may be the GOAT in pickleball, but Colin is way better of a tennis player than anybody I've played tennis with in a long
time. Oh, yeah. He's very talented. And what you mentioned earlier, he's got a very high IQ as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if you could see how hard those guys work at it, I mean, they drill and they drill hard and they work out hard. And so they're putting a good, 3 hours in on the court and another 2 or 3 are training in on a daily basis. So those guys, they want it bad. And I respect people that do that.
Yeah, that's the way the sport's going. Real athletes are coming in. And if you're not working like that, you don't stand a chance.
Yep. Well, that's all I got. So I'll stop
Final
talking.
question.
So, yeah.
One more question for you, Tim. So there's 12 teams in MLP. What's your best pitch for why all the Pickler fans should be on the Ranchers?
Well, I think we definitely. I got Tecovas Boot Company to give all my players boots and me a cowboy hat. So we are sponsored by the Tecovas Boot Company, and so I think we really, I think if you like the the Western lifestyle. And I know Austin isn't exactly the country, but everybody thinks of Texas as, kind of the Wild West and all that. Then I think we're the scrappiest, hungriest, funnest group of people and I think we're worth rooting for. We're going to give it all we got every time, and like I'm looking over here. I'm watching Anna Bright play a match at the APP tournament. I keep thinking how pumped up she gets, and I just think we're a fun group of people that know how to play the game really well and have a lot of fun doing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, congrats to you, Tim. Congrats to your Ranchers. They played amazing. Everybody, please check out the Ranchers at the final Major League Pickleball event in October in Ohio, in Tim's hometown. Stay up to date with the Ranchers on their social media.
And we're going for number 2. We're going for number 2.
Going for number 2. Yeah, you got to tie BLQK for the number of championships there.
Yeah.
And don't forget to smash that like button and follow us along here on Pickler, and head over to the pickler.com, sign up for the free newsletter. And John, any final comments? You want to take us out?
No final comments from me. Hopefully, we'll see more good games at Columbus, and we'll see how the Ranchers do. But Tim, there's always one way we close it out. We always cheers the camera. So we just cheers it out, and Pickler out.
Cheers.
Cheers.